Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is finally here, bringing back the return of some fan-favorite characters, including Raul Menendez, who's somehow still alive. Of course, this comes with the wealth of multiplayer and zombies modes, and honestly, I'm really excited to try it out for myself. So, that's exactly what I did, and I wanted to see if I could get it running on the Steam Deck, and not only did I do that, but I would consider it's fairly playable. So in this video, I'm going to show you how it's running on the Steam Deck, what kind of gameplay you can get from playing it natively, and a little bit of how to set it up. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video goes live. A copy of the game was provided by Activision for review. Thank you. I also noticed that while recording, the frame rate was a bit lower than how I was playing just handheld without recording, so you're probably going to get slightly better performance than what you see in this video. So before getting straight into the performance, I want to go over some of the issues that you might face trying to get it running on the Steam Deck and some of the obvious issues that you're going to need to correct. The game uses kernel level anti-cheat, which unfortunately is not compatible with SteamOS or really any Linux distribution. So the only way to actually play this game is going to be playing it on a Windows OS. So I actually installed Windows on my Steam Deck to test this game out. Even past that, there are a few other issues that we are going to have to correct, mainly two. We have to turn on TPM 2.0 in the BIOS, which is fairly easy to do. But we also have to turn on Secure Boot, which we can't do from the BIOS. While searching for how I could do this, I found this tool called Secure Boot, which actually creates an ISO that you can boot and will enable Secure Boot. It's made by Down the Crop, it's on GitHub, so it's fully open sourced. It is a fairly new tool, so I haven't investigated it too much, but it's fairly easy to do and much easier than the steps that we needed to do before that were found by 10-Minute Steam Deck Gamer. However, after all of that, we can get right into the game, and I was excited. So there are 3 specific modes in Call of Duty Black Ops 7, and I want to make sure each one of them were tested. Each one has somewhat different performance from each other, but the reasons behind it are all relatively the same. For this video and my initial testing, I stuck with the default settings, which is a combination of low with FSR 1.0 upscaling. There are more upscaling options, including FSR 3.0, but I found that FSR 1 still looked pretty good and saved more frame rate than the others, which we're going to need in some of these modes. Still though, it actually looks relatively good, and that's something that these developers have always had a knack for. They've been making some beautiful looking games with wonderful optimization. Starting with the campaign, performance will vary by the mission. The first mission, Exposure, played perfectly at 60 frames per second, but the second mission, Inside, brought performance down to the low 40s. It seems that the number of people on screen really isn't the issue, but how big and open the map is. This is something very consistent that I've seen across every game mode. So it's possible that there are going to be more campaign missions that are going to be a little bit hard to run on the Steam Deck. It's still going to be playable. I was still having fun and getting kills, and it wasn't terrible, but you are going to have to keep your expectations in check. Moving on to multiplayer, I got mixed results depending on the multiplayer mode that I was playing. Some will run perfectly at 60 frames per second, like Team Deathmatch, and it was just fantastic. However, trying to head into the skirmish 20 versus 20 mode will tank frame rate. It still sticks above 40 frames per second, but with how many people are on the larger field, the frame rate will dip. Still, I would consider it playable. I was able to run and kill everyone that was coming at me with ease. I'm not very good at the game, so obviously my gameplay is showing me dying, but it was more because of my skill and not because of handicaps from low frame rate. However, most game modes that don't have this many people on such a large map is going to be pretty solid and should be relatively playable. Even when it starts getting really hectic with tons of explosions, I didn't really see dips below 60. And finally, we've got the Zombies mode, which, of course, another mixed bag. The actual map for standard mode is pretty big, and at certain angles will cut the frame rate down. It still sticks above 40 frames per second the whole time, but definitely some slowdowns were noticeable. However, at some angles it sticks to 60 frames per second perfectly fine, even when there are a ton of zombies on screen, and even when there are some minor drops, they aren't felt much, which I did appreciate. There's also a survival mode on a more confined and smaller map, but for whatever reason, performance is around the same as the standard mode. Ultimately, when all is said and done, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is playable on the Steam Deck, but there are some heavy compromises. It can run above 30 frames per second the whole time, and a majority of the game will stick to above 40, but only some select modes will hit 60. Luckily, one of those modes is regular multiplayer like Team Deathmatch, but heading into larger maps like Skirmish will kill it. Still, if you have nothing else to play on, or you just want to get a multiplayer match in here and there, this will do. Honestly, I think this pairs perfectly with playing on like my desktop PC, which is much more powerful. On my desktop, I can play the larger map modes and some co-op and zombies, but if I want to get in a few matches here and there, I could see myself just taking the Steam Deck and sitting down and relaxing. And if you're curious, this is probably going to be around the same frame rate you will get playing on the Xbox Ally, but on every other more powerful console, you should hit 60 frames per second across. It's very well optimized, and I would say that it's really just limited by the Steam Deck's power. Even the ROG Ally should be able to hit 60 frames per second across each mode. I will say that the best way to play this on the Steam Deck is probably going to be through cloud streaming, which we will be able to do through GeForce Now in the future, but for what it is right now playing natively, it's doable. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified as soon as our next video goes live. And a huge thank you to our patrons. You guys are awesome. See you next time.